Hi, and welcome back to a new episode of the Search Session. Today, our guest is a globetrotter of SEO. We can define her like this. She is Australian. She lived 15 years in Germany. She has worked with companies practically in every continent except South America and Antarctica. And she is a very important voice, I think, in the SEO world because of her capacity for being able to express her idea very clearly in a way that everybody with almost every level of knowledge in SEO can understand it, which is a very, very welcome thing, I believe. She defined herself as a marketing consultant, SEO futurist, and keynote speaker in her LinkedIn. And she worked many, many years for Ringer AG, but since July 2023, she has founded her own consultancy agency. And who is this person, are you asking? This person is Jes Scholz. Hi, Jes. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine. Quite hot here in Valencia, but I mean, it's fine. It's summer, so let's enjoy it.
It's better than it being winter. It's hot here in Switzerland as well. And I wasn't quite expecting this level of weather, but it's not raining, it's not overcast, there's actually the sun. You've got to enjoy it.
Cool. So, Jess, we have a question that I ask to practically every guest of a session. How SEO is treating you in these past months?
SEO is treating me very well in these last months. I think we're at a time where it's getting really interesting again. There was a time there when if you're an experienced SEO professional, you've seen it, you've done it, you need a playbook, and it was getting a little bit boring. And then OpenAI came in with ChatGPT, and it's got really exciting and fun again. And there's lots of questions of, well, how do we do this, and what strategies work, and what tactics can we employ here? And we're all learning new things, and I find that really exciting and fun.
Cool, cool. Yeah, yes. I somehow feel the same. I mean, SEO has always has been interesting because depending on the level of depth you're working in SEO, but it's always, and especially in my case, I'm an international SEO, so it's always nice to start a new consultancy, discovering new audiences, discovering also new countries, something like this. But yes, it was somehow commoditized. It was always the all
Mm.
almost the same process. And yes, then OpenAI came out with ChatGPT and all the other came after. I felt as in my early years, I think that you also had this sort of sensation coming back in time when everything was new and we should experiment something like this. But let's say it's also a situation where everything is not, it's very fluid, uncertain. So, what do you tell to yourself and to your clients in order to bear with this situation of uncertainty with this revolution of AI in search is bringing right now?
I think it depends on the scope of what you're seeing. So when I think of SEO, SEO is just one part of a larger marketing mix. And marketing is just one part of your brand presence. And there's these constants with branding that no matter what's happening with the technical setups and with AI and all of these changes that are happening in the digital space, it doesn't change how humans interact with brands. There's these fundamental principles about how you grow your market share, how you reach and engage your audiences, how you build brand salience that do not change. And we just need to adapt the way that SEO is supporting those end goals and supporting the revenue goals and attribution goals of the business. So even though in the SEO space, a lot of things are changing, these are surface level, these are tactic level. It doesn't actually change the fundamental marketing strategies of the brand. And so that's something that I find very comforting, that even though it seems very tumultuous, there's this fundamental underlying need for brand presence. and you're just adapting the way that you're building that.
Yes, totally agreeing. In fact, it's not a coincidence that everything related to brand, also in SEO, all of a sudden, especially during these past 10, 12 months,
Mm.
as a return as a super important topic. And sometimes I think that some people do the mistake that always has been done by many SEO to trying to own all the narrative. So all of a sudden brand and branding is important for SEO, so SEO should guide. And in end, branding, uh, which is absurd because I mean we are just a tiny part, as you were saying, of a much bigger marketing strategy. And so if brand is becoming so important also for SEO because AI in search is substantially leading to this. Another classic drop is saying we are moving from click centric search results pages to visibility centric search results pages. So how SEO can contribute to the overall awareness in a bigger and wider marketing plan for the brand awareness on the search surfaces, which is not just Google search.
So I think it comes down to two things. You need to really understand, well, what are my category entry points? So a category entry point is a situation where somebody will think of your type of product. I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling tired, I'm going to think of coffee. And when I think of coffee, well, then I have to make the decision, I'm going to make it at home. If so, what brand do I have at home? Or am I going to go to the coffee shop nearby? If so, which coffee shop? And so this morning routine of having a coffee, that is my category entry point, either for a local search or for a e-commerce purchase potentially. And so how do you build up brand salience? Like that is what your CMO is concerned about. They're thinking, how do I become the brand of choice at that category entry point? And SEOs have a really important job to play in that because if I don't know, well, what cafes are near me right now, I'm going to go to Google Maps and I'm going to search it up. And how do you make sure that you're then matching for that category entry point? And this comes down to really understanding what's the positioning, what are these kind of entry points that are important, because you can't do all of them. You can do a lot, but you can't be everything to everybody. So which ones are you really going to focus on? Which user intents are you going to target? Not keywords, user intents, category entry points. Are you going to make sure that your brand is really present on, really visible on? And then when you have that visibility, it's ensuring that visibility is tying back to actually the brand. Now, you spend every single workday looking at your branding. You know your logo, you know your avatar, you know your catchphrase, you know your colors and your characters and your symbols and your styling. You know who doesn't know all of that? Everybody else. Most of your customers, the vast majority of the market, is not looking at that every day and doesn't care about that whatsoever. And so when you are showing up on these surfaces, it's not enough to say, okay, I got the visibility. Like an impression is inherently of no value. An impression only becomes valuable when in the user's mind, they see the branding, they connect those brand assets to the category entry point, and that builds brand salience. And so as SEOs, we need to be thinking not only where can I get that visibility, but by having that visibility, am I supporting my brand? Am I supporting the positioning? Am I engaging and building with that brand salience? And what does that mean for things like the site name? Have you actually optimized your site name to make sure it is how the rest of marketing is describing the brand? This comes in on apps as well. People, instead of calling their app by their brand name, call it best jobs app. You're like, okay, but what's the brand name? It's missing from there. Or they have logos across a wide variety of links that they built 5 years ago, and those logos are all outdated because there was a brand update. Well, when are you going to go and update that branding to make sure that all of those mentions that may come back into vogue now that LLMs are starting to cite historical references or cite a wider variety of references. When's the last time you looked at your Crunchbase profiles? Is that logo up to date? Because that is SEO, because that's mentions, that's going to be coming through in these citations. So it's all of these touch points and making sure that the touch points which are SEO relevant, you're on top of that branding, you're on top of that positioning, you're thinking about how I build this up from a category entry point perspective.
Yes, indeed, because I agree also because I usually say that visibility for visibility in terms of awareness is just noise. I mean, you can be everywhere in every search for every search intent, but if you are not able to stand out, yeah, I mean, you have. I saw a post recently that it was saying that substantially in a SERP, considering also all the expanded AI overview and the ads, the search features, and whatsoever, a single search results is competing with at least 25 other links. So that's why, for instance, a very silly example can be in a classic search snippet. I know that Google rewrites the title tag. I know that Google rewrites the meta description, but I don't care. I always ask to create that first snippet of content as it was your most important content, because it's that micro copy is the first thing a potential customer is going to see about you, about your brand. If you are not doing that, you are just another search results with the same title of other 10 other search results and the same meta description, which is so bad that Google decided to use a meta description made by itself. So, yes, the problem I think is that the keyword centric to build a strategy based on keywords has been so imbued in our mentality as an SEO that actually shifting completely starting so from you were saying what is the things that really determine you as a brand. So this is what I call the ontology. What is the ontology of your
Mm.
brand? So starting from there, what is the entities related to your brand that you have to own? And from there, from there going with an architecture, with different taxonomy that should reflect also how people are searching information around your entities. So this is and from there arriving to also the keyword level, because obviously, but not the other. It's completely the different type of work, because you start from a very generic stuff eventually and going down to the keyword level. I always thought it was better because I mean I'm lazy. I don't want to work with 2,000 keywords and go crazy in order to do always step back to the top. But this is one difficult in terms of making change, the mentality of many years of work for many SEO. And secondly, I think it's more complicated now because we know that one query may mean a thing or a totally different other depending on the personal situation of the
Mm.
person making the query. And can be even more risky, more complicated with this announcement that Google also did quite a few days ago, that is going to even push harder the personalization of the SERPs. What are you thinking about this sort of evolution, hyper personalized evolution of the SERP?
I think it's making more concrete something that's been the case for years. We've not forever, but for a very long time, we've had quite advanced personalization of SERPs, not on the individual user profile, because Google didn't have as strong data in the past as they'll have moving forward in the future. But it's always been there based on location, based on device, based on past search history. Now we're just adding in additional dimensions, which are very, very powerful dimensions. And from a person using these LLMs search or AI search, it's going to be a significantly better search experience, I do believe. But it's not that it's brand new to SEO. It's not that we haven't had the information about the importance of entities and about the importance of knowledge graphs and about the importance of personalization, and not to optimize for keywords, but to optimize for topics and solutions and category entry points. This is all information that we've had for many years. It's now just past that tipping point where it is becoming impossible to ignore it. If you only do your traditional keyword search strategies, you're getting to a point where you will be guaranteed to fail. You have to evolve and adapt. And this is what I think is causing friction for a lot of people who have been in the industry a little bit longer, because they do have these ways of thinking, and we need to change, fundamentally change. And for me, one of the most valuable experiences to adapt my way of thinking on these topics has been working with media publishers, because for many of them, the vast majority of their traffic isn't coming from search, it's coming from Discover. Now, Discover is still SEO, it's still establishing topical authority, it's still about making sure that you're getting the visibility on the surface and appealing to the algorithm, but there's no keywords involved. If there's never a keyword in Discover, there is X amount of slots for certain people, and everybody will have fundamentally different Discover profiles based on their interest and based on their browsing behavior. And so, because I've been optimizing for Discover for so many years, this transition to the same base principles of it's a topic interest and it's a really dedicated profile to an individual is not so foreign, and it's not so scary. If you're a brand and you haven't mastered how to get content into Discover, that should be where you're focusing. Because when you can do that as an SEO, you understand knowledge graphs, you understand topical authority. And obviously, in that case, you're only applying it in the vast majority of cases, it's articles and videos or social posts that are getting into Discover. It's rare, not impossible, but it's rarer that it's going to be your product content. And generally, the product content will only start coming in once you've established that reputation in Discover with Google for article content. So whether you're doing that through your own domain and getting your own content on your domain featured in Discover, or if that's not possible because you just don't have the scale of website to ever break into that threshold, doing it through digital PR and making sure that those partnerships that you're building with media houses or with people who do have stronger topical blogs than you would have on your own domain, how are you making sure that you're making those connections between your brand, those topics, and those people, that visibility on Discover? And mastering that process, it really just solidified everything for me in my mind. And then it's really easy to take those principles and take that understanding and take that domain that's been optimized for it and apply it to your PDPs, apply it to your category pages, apply it to your homepage or whatever other important page type you have on your website.
Yes, in fact, Discovery was a good training field for Google for everything it's doing right now. I remember that it is still possible to do now on the SERP. Remember the bell with the plus, follow this brand, follow this
Yeah.
publication. It was a way to create your own.
They've just put it back into news.
Yeah, yes,
Mm.
yes. For saying, okay, I want this a news website. I want more news more coming from this news website. Maybe the risk is that people will start creating their own echo chambers, and this is something that it's an important risk because we have echo chambers in every digital platform substantially because it's social are totally echo chambers, and the search, yeah, at least was one of the last places where the echo chamber was partly present, but you also had the option. And so the fear is we are going to have big echo chambers, and these big echo chamber probably are going to, I don't know if with all the time that it always takes, the European community will try to discover that this situation will ask Google and the search engine to try to avoid this thing using its soft power. But when talking about brand, this is another pet peeve of mine. SEO always tend to think to content as textual content. And I know I mean, following you from a long time, that you also agree that this is silly. I mean, because especially now that AI mode, AI overviews, the SERPs are totally multimodal in this sense. But yes, to be good, to optimize the visibility of a brand, also for all the potential multimodal option that we can have from image, from video, from audio, etc., etc. It's more complicated than just creating some content, written content. But what you should tell to the SEO community and to business company that thinking only in text is content is not safe, and that we pay attention, the same attention that we pay to content optimization, text, to video optimization, to visual search optimization, to vocal search optimization, which us SEO always neglected because voice search is coming and was not coming, but now we know
Mm.
that it's coming for real. So, what are your process when you have to decide to prioritize and combine these multimodal ways of creating content?
So I think it's important to understand that the content is not the piece of text, or the content is not even the web page URL. Whenever I think of content, I think of it is in a database. And actually, the database is my brand value. And then the website is one instance of that database. The app is another instance of accessing that database. I can take that database and I can export it to others through an RSS feed or through an XML sitemap. I can also export it into YouTube or to social networks or to a news aggregator or to wherever, an indexing API, because it's all just sitting in a database and it's well structured in that database to give me that flexibility to be able to take these fields and put it here and those fields and put it there. I think a lot of people are scared of a format like video because they think, okay, it's so much effort and it's so much work, and I have to sit there and record it, and I don't have someone to do that. And how am I going to put it all together? One of the big benefits is that AI does assist significantly in translating these database structures into a variety of different formats. Now, the challenge is to do that without making AI slop. Just because we can make a whole bunch of videos or a whole bunch of podcasts or a whole bunch of audio formats doesn't necessarily mean that we should. If you're producing content and that content is not assisting your brand to boost brand salience, to win the hearts and minds of your audience so that they choose you in a buying situation, don't make the content, because it's not actually helping your brand. And then when your CEO comes to you and says, well, you've made 50 videos, where's the ROI? You're not going to be able to prove anything because you didn't have the right strategy behind it. We need to make sure that we're leveraging AI and what it provides for us in terms of streamlining content creation in a smart way that allows us to support the end goals of the business. And that comes back to the quality of what you have in the database. Just because I can write an article and I can produce a long form video and I can produce 7 short form videos out of that long form video on stock tips. I know absolutely nothing about the stock market. I am a property girl. I buy property. I don't invest in stocks. My husband does all of that. I am useless. I can make 7 videos on it in an hour. I can write articles on it and I can put them up on the website for a financial brand. Is that going to help that brand? Absolutely not, because it's only parroting back what already exists in the market. And the key of a brand is to add to the conversation. Now, that might be adding more information because you have access to expertise that other people don't. That might be adding to the conversation by access to data and analysis that other people don't. That could be adding to the conversation just by making something that was previously seen as really academic and inaccessible understandable to your end users. We see this a lot with people who are going viral on social media. It's not that they're saying brand new things. They're saying these things that are known in a more accessible and understandable way. And that is itself of value. Just having an opinion, if it's in a well-informed, well-researched opinion, can be of value, or aggregating content in a really unique way can be of value. So, but it has to have value. It can't just be, it got spat out of the LLM. Now let me translate that and put it into an article format, put it into video format. Off I go. I've produced 7 pieces of content. If you've produced 7 pieces of slop, you are not doing yourself, your brand, or our industry any help. You need to make sure you understand what value am I adding to the ecosystem that's going to be attributed back to my brand by producing this item.
Yes, and what you are saying is making come to my mind a conversation I had with a friend of mine who is really is an SEO, but it's more on the educational side. He is working obviously in its own agency, but he dedicates most of his time creating events to educate people about SEO in Italy. He is really active. The biggest asset he has is its own YouTube channel. And he was telling to me that now that is changing everything, and creating content is so important to create relevant important. And he was saying, especially in the case of a little publisher, independent publisher, maybe they should try to understand how the creator economy is working and learn from the successful creator, somehow, as you were saying. And if a brand doesn't have resources of the knowledge to start creating meaningful content in multi-format content, to start associating with creators that are really successful and influencers. So it's a sort of win-win, because you are going to give even a more presence, a trusted presence to this creator if you are a trusted brand, but you are also learning from them and using them to expand to a community of potential user and customers that you until that moment weren't able. And maybe creating this sort of co-marketing experiences with creators can be a good idea, a better idea than just sponsoring the creator. Somehow, just a link in the in the description of a video, or a 30-second block into the video of the creator. So creating things together maybe could be the right idea. And I really agree in the sense of what makes successful content. Sometimes it's not even what is in the content, but how you are able to express it in a divulgative way. I totally agree with what you were saying, but let's try to return to the text part of the content. Now, with all the query fan out frenzy, all the chunk frenzy, always think we are not going to incur in the same mistake that we have done for so many other things in the past. Let's say, if everything is a chunk, if we think that everything is a chunk, we are not just going to have the risk to just optimize on a micro level and forget to optimize on a micro level, which is as important as the micro.
I think it's inevitable that we are going to repeat past mistakes because we're human and this is just what we do and have done for centuries. I would really hope that some people listen to this conversation and don't. But I know that on a whole, as an industry, we are about to make a very big mistake. And that very big mistake is we're listening to these tech bros, and these tech bros from the States are coming out and they're saying, okay, the vast majority of visitors to websites are going to be AI agents. And AI agents, they just want those chunks. So just write in really, really clear chunks and make sure that that's how you'll be cited in LLMs. And I'm like, bro, you're missing the point. Because if I'm creating content, I need to understand what is the use of this content. There are product pages. What's the purpose of a product page? To drive a conversion. It doesn't need to be flowery and fancy and have editorial cadence. It needs to very clearly, quickly, efficiently communicate, this is the benefits of this product for you. You have something like an article, and articles are divided up into a myriad of subtopics. You have opinion articles, you have editorial articles, you have how-to articles, you have just here's a factual definition. And you need to understand what of those types of content are something that's purely for a citation. If it's purely for a citation, I don't really see that much as SEO, because the LLM, whether it's an AI overview or an AI mode or a ChatGPT, if I say, what's the definition of SEO? They're going to be able to answer, what's the definition of SEO? End of interaction from the user's perspective. There's no chance of a click. There's no chance of building brand salience. They don't care as a user where that citation came from. They got their answer. Chances are that answer was spoken out loud by their device, so they never even saw your brand. But when it comes to something like, how do I invest in stocks as a beginner? Yeah, I can get that AI content and I can read their 5 paragraph little summary of chunks. Is that going to help me actually understand how to do this? No, 100%. It's not. It's a kicking off point to continue research. And those type of queries are where I will look at the citations and I will say, okay, this is a brand that I know, that I trust, that I heard about before. So out of the 4 citations on an AI mode page, I'm going to choose the one that I know. I'm going to go and I'm going to read that content as a human. And that comes back to, if all that content is optimized for chunking, and it's here's an FAQ, and here is my exact 2 sentence answer, which always starts with the question, which is just above, because I have to have it in there, because it has to be a well optimized chunk. Oh, as a human, you don't want to read that. Like, I'm not going to interact with that brand. Again, that's a bad experience. You still need something that is well written and editorially relevant and has a flow and is something you want to read. Now, I'm not saying don't structure your content, because sometimes people go too much on the other way and it's too flowery and it has no structure and it doesn't have a good flow. We need to find this right balance in the middle. And that's for our video content as well. It's about having this right balance of, yes, understanding that a key target audience, a new key target audience, is these LLMs. That yes, you do need to write in a way that's going to allow them to extract the entities, to build that into their knowledge graph, to be able to take out these little chunks and put it in their vector database so you can win the citations. But you still have humans and it still needs to be readable. So find the right balance between those 2 things. Don't over optimize for chunking, because then you hurt your brand.
Yeah, yes, because if not, it's like when in the early days we were trying to teach the journalist this horrible combo, which was SEO copywriting, and they started to hate SEO from the very first moment because just telling them who are the professional in writing, how to write, was quite arrogant from our side. And now we are going to risk the same because, I mean, in fact, what I usually do is more than how to optimize the content itself, like the written words, is how can we optimize the structure of this page, for instance, a product description page, so that we can present all the information that we have to present in a structured way, which is useful for both, for the person, because we know, for instance, in a technical product, in B2B, the potential customer wants to have also the table with the technical data of the product. Yes, you can have the description can be a little bit longer because you have to explain the product. It's not like explaining these sneakers by a wonderful, even if you can do something like this also for the sneakers, for instance. And then just a few, because you know that they can be useful for citation. So having the product page cited by an AI synthetic answer also in a, let's say, informational stage of a search could be cool, could be interesting. So just the right FAQ about the product, because what I've seen is always the same block of FAQ copy pasted from product page to product page. But now, okay, we have so many surfaces from where people can discover us. Let's see how much traffic this is really bringing to us. Okay. But one problem which is really making scratching the heads of so many marketers, not just SEO, is how can we measure this? Because Google Search Console is almost a joke with everything mixed up into the performance. And ChatGPT, yes, recently started to put the UTM in all the links, but still on Google Analytics, you can see that ChatGPT is presented as a referral 2, 3 times as 3 different types. Perplexity almost the same. DeepSeek appears sometimes, but you know that it's appearing less than it should be. So you recently posted, I mean, it was somehow transgressive, I think, post. How can you measure the impact of AI on your website? And I really like it, the graphics you use in your post. And it was when analytic fails, ask your user. I mean, it's really simple, but so simple that I kindly ask you to expand this phrase of yours.
Yeah. So I was posting about, how do you know where your user came from? And in my mind, it's as simple as asking the user at the right point in the user journey, a simple drop down of, did you hear about us on Google, ChatGPT, Instagram, word of mouth, whatever it may be. I think we felt like we got spoiled with data as a digital marketing community. And we deluded ourselves into a feeling that we knew everything about all of our customers and could target them. And then you can really just get down to the high value customers and ignore everybody else because you just need that percentage of the market that's going to continue to come back as loyal people who love your brand. And it's all bullshit. Like, that's not how marketing works in the real world. I'm a big proponent of the Ergenberg Bass Institute and the writings of Byron Sharp. If you haven't read How Brands Grow, to me, it's like the marketing Bible. It's a fantastic book. And it really drives home that it's our job as marketers and as SEOs, as a subset of marketing, to regularly reach the total addressable market in a way that builds brand salience. And to not get lost in our data and to not think that we, by targeting a specific keyword, are going to always rank in position one, because for many years that's always just been a wish. It's been a delusion. Now, that's to say that, like, I really like data. I use it a lot. I would consider myself data informed. I'm not data driven, because data just informs my decision, and then I use this thing in my head, a human brain, to interpret, well, what does that mean? And a lot of people right now are talking about, how do I measure SEO now that Google Search Console data isn't great, Google Analytics data isn't great, that we can expect that search term reporting that we've been enjoying in Google Search Console to go away as we move into a world of Gemini fan out queries. Like, we're not getting those fan out queries in Google Search Console. That's not going to happen. ChatGPT is not going to give us all of their fan out queries in the impressions. So this data that we've enjoyed previously from traditional search, it was always a sample of a sample. And now it's going to be going away as we move into these AI worlds. And so with the data that we do have, you can use, these AI tracking tools, and you can put in your prompts, and you can see for that prompt in that circumstance on that device on these logged out queries. So there's a lot of if. How is your visibility? And you can calculate your share of voice from that. I'm actually a fan of that from a high level funnel branding positioning perspective. I am not using this information to say, for this specific query, I have the top citation, because you may not, you don't know. What I am using this data for is for these types of prompts for a user where I don't put in any information about the ideal customer profile, because I think ideal customer profiles in B2C are complete bull. In B2B is questionable. I would still address the total addressable market, not an ideal customer profile. But I see these prompt tracking tools and the outputs of those in terms of share of voice the same way I would see a human focus group. It's giving me insights into the potential brand visibility. It's not that I am going out and I'm surveying every single person in the total addressable market and have accurate, exact data on my brand positioning in the market. I have a feeling from it for a small sample where I have curated that sample to answer specific questions that I'm interested in a absolute, like as accurate as possible way that I can be informed by that data. So top of funnel, I'm very much into AI prompt tracking tools that also can track traditional search. So you're using the one tool for all of that visibility. So currently I'm trialing Demand Sphere. I'm pretty happy with them from that perspective. But there's a lot out there. Like there's a myriad of tools that you can use for it. And then I'm tying that back into, you have top of the funnel share of voice, some GSC data, some GA data, and then you have real data when it comes to how many transactions did I make and what was the revenue from those transactions and how does that position me in terms of market share. And that top of funnel, I don't like the concept of a funnel, but you all know what I mean by this, the kind of top of funnel share of voice and bottom of funnel, here's my actual revenue from that, and seeing how those two lines correlate over time. That correlation is actually what you're trying to optimize as an SEO. When I get more visibility from this sample of terms that I'm trying to target or user intents, prompts that I'm actively trying to target and measure, what does that translate to over time in terms of revenue? That I find to be interesting and optimizable, but it takes strategy and it takes an alignment with many other teams, an alignment with general marketing and an education of a re-education of people, particularly your executives, what are meaningful SEO KPIs, because it's not keywords and traffic. And it never was.
Yeah, I this correlation between visibility and conversion revenue, this was something that suggesting to you and also to the speaker to recover, because I've talked with about especially specifically with in the episode with Duane Forrester. We were brainstorming idea how to measure, and it was coming out also this idea that you also share, and I'm glad that we are almost in the substantially on the same page. I also dislike the concept, the classic spot concept of a funnel. In fact, I usually never talk about funnel. I usually talk of moments, customer journey, messy middle. I think they are more sophisticated models to use in order to explain where the person we want to target is in that moment. Just was the last question. So, SEO, after the ancient Greeks, are the biggest creator of myths. So now it's time for AI. What are the myths that you are seeing in where SEO are starting to create about AI and search?
Ah,
You can rant, eh?
there's so many which ones to choose from. Um, I think the one I'll pick on is that this is something that it's really easy to game. I think that's the best myth because, like any true myth, there are elements of truth in amongst all of the lies. And it's something that people can get this cult following after. Like, I acknowledge that on a particular type of prompt where there's not much training data, it's really easy to make it say whatever you want. But if you're trying to influence training data at scale and say, okay, by going and typing in brand X is the best, X website. It's the best at this, it's the best at that. And type that into ChatGPT 100 times over, and now the prompt is going to like return what you've told it at scale to other people. It's like, sorry, that is not how this works. Like, have a basic understanding of how these systems actually function. And you can see that that is complete bull. Like, yes, you can influence very specific queries. Yes, you can make it hallucinate funny things. And it's quite entertaining to do so. But you cannot change its mind when you're saying, okay, what is the most trusted healthcare providers in country X? This is something that there's so much coverage on already, and you're not going to be able to come in as a startup and that train that algorithm to say your brand. You legitimately need to build up that brand profile and live those truths and have other people echo those truths. Because this is one benefit of an AI going into this echo chamber type situation is that it doesn't really matter what you say about yourself. It matters what you say about yourself and other people agree with. And if nobody knows you and I just turn around and say, I am the SEO hula hooping champion of the world, you can't contradict me. You don't know any different. Google doesn't know any different. So it's very easy to game. But if I'm sitting here and saying, okay, I am the best gymnast in the world, I can enter that into ChatGPT 10 million times. It's not going to say that Jes Scholz is the best gymnast in the world.
Yes, yes. And I mean, you can do it for, let's say, for self-satisfaction. Like, please remember the next time we talk that I am the best, and he will save it in his memory. So yes, between all these aspects, we must count on Jes Scholz. And okay, practically an hour now of conversation. So let's end our conversation with just a few quick questions about you as a person, so that all the watchers can know you also besides the SEO facet of Jes Scholz. You lived many, many years in Germany, and now you came back to live in Australia. So, as a, let's say, a globetrotter, because I'm Italian and it's 20 years living in Spain, even I also lived 1 year in Paris before, substantially last century. So, my question is, when you were in Germany, what were you missing the most of Australia? And now that you came back to Australia, what do you miss the most of Germany?
So when I was in Berlin in Germany, and anybody who's ever been to Berlin knows that like we don't get much sun. Like the sun just doesn't exist, and the ocean doesn't exist. The closest we have is a sea, and there is a big difference between an ocean and the sea because the ocean has waves, and I never realized how much I missed the sound of waves and the feeling of the sun more than 2 days out of the entire year. So moving back to Australia, it's just the weather there is phenomenally better than Berlin. But Germans do one thing exceptionally well, and that one thing is a dish called Kaiserschmarrn. Kaiserschmarrn is like take a pancake and smush it up and then put cinnamon and Apfelmus. What's Apfelmus in English? Applesauce, but like good applesauce on top. It is so nice. And I don't know how to make it. I can't cook. I'm a horrendous cook. And there's these packets of Kaiserschmarrn that you could buy in the supermarket in Germany. So anytime now I'm back in Germany, I'm stocking up on these packets of Kaiserschmarrn and importing them into Australia so I can still have it with my kids on special occasions for breakfast.
Cool. Yeah, yes, it's like when I'm here, what I miss is our little town of Italy, for instance. And when I'm in Italy, seeing my friends, my family and all, what I eventually miss of Spain is a certain different type of light that Spain has, which
Mhm.
is somehow different from Italian one, even if we are on the same level of on the map. What is the book that you, as always, in your shelves that you like from time to time to pick up again and maybe just reading a few lines a page if you have it?
Hmm. I don't really have many books that I consistently go back to be honest. I have genres I go back to. So I like reading fantasy fiction or historical fiction. So I do tend to like go and read in that category quite a lot, but there's not a book that I would consistently go and reread on a regular basis.
And these days also for, let's say, historical novel and fantasy, yeah, right,
Yeah.
is also translated to TV series and movie,
I
or
have two young
maybe
kids,
no.
so there is no TV series and movie watching going on. It's like it is keeping the kids alive, trying to run my business on top of that, and having some form of health and fitness. Yeah, there is no time for TV
Yeah,
or movies, I'm afraid.
you know what I do? Maybe it's a good, could be a tip for you. Sometimes I find myself also doing the most boring work, part of our work, like typing an Excel or a spreadsheet, something like this, in the night because it's boring. And so what I do is I see so many series, but I don't really watch them. I hear them as they were a radio drama, because with a spreadsheet I go on on automatic, and so I can hear the series. But maybe just give it a try. It can be an
I will.
idea. So it was really great to meet you for the first time, sincerely, because I always read of you, but never talk with you in person. And I really hope to meet you in real life in the next future, maybe one of the many conferences, because you come to Europe quite relatively frequently, also about visiting clients, also for speaking at conferences. So let's see. Let's hope to see finally in real life one each other.
I would love that.
And maybe let's see, let's make us a promise. Let's wait a few months, 1 year, and see where those things that we were saying 1 year ago, let's see what happened.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. And dear watchers, this is the moment that I must fake to be an influencer creator, but seriously, remember to ring on the bell, subscribe to the channel, and give it a like to this video, because this video, honestly, has been wonderful. Thank you, and see you in the next episode of a search session.